At least the girls and I will be together in heaven. Hi, friends. My name is Verona, and this is Season 2 of Verona Investigates. A mother is often seen as a protector, the one person a child can always turn to for safety. But in October of 2006 in Barrie, Ontario, that image shattered in the most devastating way. Police entered a small apartment to find two little girls lifeless in their mother's care. Their mother, Elaine Campione, had recorded chilling home videos in the hours before their deaths, framing them as an act of twisted revenge against her estranged husband. Today on Verona Investigates, we're exploring the heartbreaking case of Elaine Campione, a story that raises haunting questions about mental illness, custody battles, and what happens when a system meant to protect children falls short. This is not an easy story to hear, but it is one that needs to be told. On October 4th, 2006, Elaine Campione called local police to report her two young daughters were dead. When the officers arrived on scene, the two girls, 3-year-old Serena and 19-month-old Sophia, were in their mother's bedroom, lying on her bed, holding hands in their PJs, with a rosary and a photo album between them. At the time of the murder, Elaine and Leo were in the midst of a nasty divorce. Elaine and her ex-husband, Leo Campione, originally met back in early 2000s. The couple had separated in June of 2005, when Elaine alleged that Leo had abused her throughout their relationship. Leo was facing 4 counts of assault, 1 count of assault causing bodily harm, and 1 count of uttering threats for incidents that occurred between 2004 and 2005 involving his wife and eldest daughter, Serena. When police arrived at the home on October 4th, 2006, after receiving a 911 call, it was suspected that Elaine had murdered the girls 2 days prior, as it was noted by police that the smell of decomposition was in the air. Elaine had drowned her daughters in the bathtub to prevent her ex-husband from gaining custody. She then dried and combed their hair, dressed them in their PJs, earrings and necklaces, and placed them in the bed under the covers holding hands. She surrounded them with stuffed animals and dolls and wrapped rosary beads around their interlocking hands. Elaine would then attempt unsuccessfully to commit suicide. It happened just days before the couple were to appear in family court for another custody hearing. The motive behind the murders is believed that she claimed in a document divorce filing that her husband, Leo, told her she would never see the kids again. He said he would tell everyone she was crazy and unfit to raise children. These weren't baseless claims. She was, in fact, having problems with her mental health. Elaine had spent time in a psychiatric ward before the murders, and another time where she attempted suicide. It was reported that she expressed intense delusions of people trying to kill her and steal her girls. Elaine even claimed to have saw aliens. In addition, she displayed other strange and bizarre behavior, like not letting one of her daughters touch anything that was the color red. There was no question about it that she was mentally ill, nor was there questions that she was, in fact, the one who killed her 2 daughters. The question was she aware of what she was doing when she held the head of her first daughter and then the other underwater until they had both stopped struggling? Was she criminally responsible for her actions? Elaine was later arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. It would take 4 years before the case went to trial. The prosecution had a videotape containing footage of Serena and Sophia, as well as Elaine speaking as though she and her 2 daughters were already dead. It was a long video of her ranting to her ex-husband Leo. In tears, she called him the devil, accused him of abuse, and asked him if he was happy now that he had won. She tells him God is taking care of his daughters now. She goes on with her malice rant for quite some time, saying she was forced to do this because Leo would not tell the truth. She goes on to say, "At least the girls and I will be together in heaven." The videotape was used as evidence against her in the trial. The evidence of abuse against her ex-husband Leo and her history of mental illness and suicide attempts was also brought forth during trial. The defense team would allege she was mentally ill and she was not criminally responsible for her actions. The prosecution agreed with the defense that she was mentally ill. However, they did not agree she wasn't criminally responsible. The defense team would claim that her mental disorder rendered her incapable of knowing what was morally right or wrong. The prosecution argued that despite her illness, she was aware of what she was doing that night. She knew right from wrong and deliberately killed her 2 daughters to prevent her ex-husband from gaining custody. The trial would last 7 weeks, and the jury deliberated for another week, taking a break on the 3rd day to ask for clarification regarding the notion of morally wrong. Finally, on Monday, November 15th, 2010, more than 4 years after the death of her daughters, the jury returned with a verdict. They found Elaine Campione guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder and the drowning deaths of her 2 young daughters, Serena and Sophia. She broke down crying after the verdict was read, her entire body shaking according to reports. When the judge announced the verdict carried a sentence of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 25 years, the sobbing became even louder. Though Leo Campione was not in the courtroom to hear his ex-wife's verdict and sentence, he did send a victim impact statement that was read to the court. In his emotional statement, Leo wrote about how the image of his 2 daughters struggling to breathe as their heads were held underneath by their mother would haunt him for the rest of his life. Elaine Campione now goes by Elaine Gooden. After her 2010 appeals were denied in 2015, the parole board declared in 2020 that she had been a model inmate and was allowed escorted temporary absence ETA pass to leave the prison facility for personal development, including Bible study, a course to deal with her anger and emotions, and a recovery program. In 2022, the ETA passes were extended by the parole panel, stating, "You have been described as a model inmate, and you have remained cooperative and engaged in your personal correctional plan," her CP. You have actively participated in treatment, and you recognize you have long-term mental health needs that require ongoing treatment. Since his statement was read in court at his ex-wife's trial back in 2010, her ex-husband, Leo Campione, has kept a low profile, and there doesn't appear to be any current news about the father of the murdered girls. Thank you for listening to Season 2 of Verona Investigates, Women Who Kill. Every week we uncover stories of women who have committed the most unthinkable, sometimes alone, sometimes with a partner, and sometimes with the help of a system that failed to see the warning signs. These cases aren't easy to hear. They challenge our idea about love, family, justice, and the roles women are expected to play in society. But by talking about them, we remember the victims, we question the headlines, and we ask ourselves, how do we make sure this never happens again? If you found this episode meaningful, please follow, subscribe, and share Verona Investigates with others who want to dig deeper into Canadian true crime. And you can find me on YouTube and TikTok at Verona Investigates. Until next week, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, not every story has a happy ending, but every story deserves to be told. Until next time, bye.